Welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Albert Cho. The Indo-Pacific region has recently witnessed a significant uptick in military exercises. Beyond several joint drills in January, the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force and the U.S. Marine Corps conducted the Iron Fist joint island capturing exercise in February, followed by the Cobra Gold 2024 drill in Thailand late the same month. Additionally, South Korea and the U.S. initiated a spring military exercise aimed at countering North Korea. What is driving the intensification of these drills? Joining us today are Chen Ming-chi, Institute for National Defense and Security Research CEO, and Kuo Yu-jen, National Yat-sen University Institute of China and Asia-Pacific Studies Director, Institute for National Policy Research, INPR, Vice President. A very warm welcome to both on the show. Cobra Gold, now in its 43rd iteration, is an annual event co-hosted by Thailand and the U.S. It boasts participation from 30 countries, including South Korea, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore, drawing around 9,500 attendees. Notably, China has been invited to participate this year. The Iron Fist joint island capturing military exercise involves the U.S. Marine Corps, the Japan Ground Self-Defense Forces. This exercise mobilized approximately 2,000 personnel to carry out drills in Kyushu and Okinawa, primarily aimed at countering China. So the first question goes to Professor Kuo, is that what are the key differences between these two exercises?
If we look at the nature, the differences in nature between Cobra Gold and Iron Fist, I will not do this comparison because they are very different in nature. Okay. Cobra Gold is basically, it is an open platform, welcoming all outside players to join. Because the very purpose of Cobra Gold is to, first of all, to increase mutual understanding. Second of all, is to establish like standards for SOPs. And third of all, is to increase each other's standardization for military training. So it has been centered on Army and field training. That's number one. And it is a little bit different this year because they have additional exercise items from last year, especially on HADR, which is humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, and also space security and cyber security as well. And another special point about this year's Cobra Gold is they invited China, and China did participate in this training. And China's participation is only limited to HADR items, but not involving the real Army training or the ground joint exercises. So it is very different to Iron Fist. Iron Fist is basically a very close joint exercise, and it's only between the U.S. and Japan. Yeah.
Is it fair for me to say that the Cobra Gold is more of a logistic type of coordination among different nations, whereas of course the Iron Fist is a very tight military ally between the United States and Japan?
Cobra Gold is nothing about logistics at all. Mm-hmm. It is again, it is an open forum. It's an open platform, welcoming all surrounding countries to join together. Mm-hmm. That major purpose is to increase mutual understanding. So, put it in other words, is trying to avoid strategic misjudgment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, mm-hmm. For the surrounding countries. Mm-hmm. So it is nothing about logistics.
All right. Okay, Professor Chen, what's your observation of these two exercises?
Well, first of all, the Cobra Gold is a long-running military exercise in Asia. I've been more than 30 plus years, and as Professor Kuo just mentioned, it's an open platform. Also composed of two parts. First is about the military drill, and the other part is HADR mission. And China has participated since 2015. So I think this is nothing new, but also, as Professor Kuo put it, I would like to say it's a kind of military diplomacy. So to enhance mutual understanding, reduce the risk of misjudgment, and they serve the purpose. So I think this is also a venue for China military to interact with other militaries in the region and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now let's talk about the Iron Fist exercise. It is conducted by the US and Japan, as the two professors mentioned. It's viewed as a strategy to counter Chinese territorial ambitions and to protect the Taiwan Strait. In contrast, the Cobra Gold exercise has welcomed China to join in humanitarian and disaster relief activities. So what motivates China's participation in these exercises, Professor Kuo?
Of course, Cobra Gold is an open platform, so it is also for China's, strategic interest to understand what the surrounding countries has been doing, especially on the ground. Again, Cobra Gold again is centered on army, and is centered on field training. Yeah, as Dr. Chen just mentioned. That's the major purpose. So it is also for China's national interest to understand, to increase their understanding about what the surrounding countries have been doing. Yeah.
Professor Chen, so what is your observation, since you are experts in China, that the Chinese Communist Party participating in these military drills normally led by the United States, but there's a room for China to get in?
Certainly. I mean, China is now feel under siege. And also some of this is of their own making, and some of that because of a changing international strategic environment. So I think China intentionally to open this channel of our communication, just like they've been withdrawn from Shangri-La dialogue for many years. And last year they begin to go back to Shangri-La, although the main participant had been purged and replaced by his colleague Dong Jun. So I think they want to remain a channel to communicate with the outside world. That's very important for China nowadays, especially given the international strategic environment. It's necessary for China to do that kind of communication. But at the same time, they are increasing their joint military activities with North Korea, especially with Russia. A lot of activity happen between these two countries.
Well, actually, Cobra Gold is not just a bilateral exercises. It's a multilateral, as two of you mentioned. It is a comprehensive multilateral event involving numerous countries. So let's talk about the country Thailand. Okay, Thailand's previous joint military exercise with China. How does it maintain a neutral stance between the U.S. and China? Because we know that in the Southeast Asia country, there will be a lot of non-alignment movements, yes, among them. So maybe still, Professor Chen, you still can kind of add up to this. Is how is it likely for Thailand to remain neutral when it comes to the military coordination?
I mean, Thailand always play a very interesting role. They think they value the non-alignment policy as is very important, critical to their survival. So I think they want to remain, not to choose side between big great nations. So I think it's only natural for them to do this kind of thing. But anyway, the Cobra Gold is an open platform. It's open to including China. Like many other regional military exercises. For example, the RIMPAC, that's probably the most important military exercise in this region. Previously, I think since 2016, China had been invited to observe. But since I think 2019 or so, I cannot remember the exact year, they got excluded from this. So I think by participating in this is important to China. It's also important to the countries in this region. So the purpose is reduce the risk of misjudgment.
And Professor Kuo, what about Thailand? I mean, what's its calculation, since we know that Thailand normally has a quite close relationship with China?
I have to emphasize that what Thailand has been facing is actually quite similar to many countries in this region. First of all, Thailand is a treaty ally to the United States, and it's not to China. And the U.S., second of all, U.S. consider Thailand as a major non-NATO ally, one out of the 18. So put in other words, the U.S. DoD does, every year provide military assistance to Thailand. And number three, of course, China is #1 trade partner to Thailand. And diplomatically, as Dr. Chen mentioned, Thailand doesn't want to pick a side between China and the U.S. But lastly, frankly speaking, in terms of, in military terms, there is really no choice for Thailand. It has to stick with the states. Okay. Yeah. So China's participation in Cobra Gold is really, as Dr. Chen mentioned, to increase, China's understanding of what its neighbors had been doing recently. Yeah.
I also have a follow-up question for two of you, is that how do the relationship between the U.S. and Thailand, and also between Thailand and China, will influence the developments of ASEAN as a whole?
Well, I think it's a very complicated group of people. Unlike NATO, they probably have one single enemy, but the security situation in the ASEAN country, especially I think China has an uneven influence in this region. Some countries choose to be very close to China. Others would rather to keep a distance. So when we speak of ASEAN, ASEAN is not it's not like NATO. It's not like EU. It's a collection of nations happen to be in the same area. So they have different position. I think Thailand is more in the middle, not want to choose side. Many other countries sort of choose side, China side, or more closer to United States. I think they have their consideration in this region. Everybody try to hedge their risk. I think it's so many countries. It's a long tradition of non-alignment movement in this area.
Is it accurate for me to say that ASEAN is more like an organization that Southeast Asia countries join for economic purpose instead of military purpose, Professor Kuo?
I would say it's unfair to describe ASEAN as that. ASEAN neutrality is the central theme and also the very foundation for establishment of such an international organization. Meaning individual countries in this group, they do have their own national interest seeking, between China and the States. But when they join together as a whole, as ASEAN, they don't pick side, as Dr. Chen just mentioned. So ASEAN is not just for economic interest, it's for strategic interest. Not picking side, not side with China or with the States could maximize the very interest of ASEAN as a whole. And so it's a very different story if you compare, for example, Thailand and ASEAN as a whole. That's a different story. And if you compare the current conflicts, South China Sea, the Philippines with China, Filipino national interest is very different to the very foundation of ASEAN. So ASEAN as a whole will not, does not and will not show their position and attitude toward this dispute between the Philippines and China.
Okay. Turning our attention to the U.S., its military has been remarkably active in running exercises. In early 2024, the Indo-Pacific region hosted numerous military drills. January saw the U.S., Japan, and South Korea in naval exercises near South Korea's Jeju Island, as well as Sea Dragon 2024 in Guam, with the U.S., Japan, South Korea, Australia, and India participating. February followed with the COP 24 Air Force drill with the U.S., Japan, and Australia, in addition to the U.S.-Japan Keen Edge 24 command post simulation, among other medium and small exercises. So, Professor Chen, given a substantial investment by the U.S. in the cost for these exercises, what are the objectives over there?
Well, the U.S. tried to maintain the peace and stability in this region. So by doing a lot of multilateral or trilateral or bilateral or even unilateral military exercise, I think the main purpose is to maintain the peace and stability in this region. I remember the former Deputy National Security Advisor, Matt Pottinger, spoke in our Taipei Security Dialogue last year. He mentioned that all the Terrans are opportunistic. They are seeking opportunity to expand their influence. So I think the U.S. position this, and by doing a lot of military exercise with its partner, like-minded country here, I think the main purpose is to maintain the peace and stability and send a very strong signal to the dictator around this region that U.S. is here and they have a very solid military cooperation with regional countries.
Professor Kuo, I have a question for you. Take one step further. Is that do you think these joint exercises would contributing to the escalation of geopolitical tensions, or on the other hand, are they aimed to bolstering security, maybe of Taiwan especially?
First of all, I have to emphasize all these, getting larger scale of joint military exercise every year. It is actually now reflecting the U.S. investment, security investment in this region. It is more like because the U.S. cannot compare military capacity with China anymore. In the past 10 years, China produced 15 destroyers. Meanwhile, the U.S. only produced 1. So it is very unwise for the U.S. to compare military capacity with China. So roughly, the U.S. government now is trying to reshuffle and to reincorporate its allies' military capacity in this region. So what I'm trying to say is the U.S. is basically holding the capability that China doesn't have, which is networking power. China doesn't have allies in Asia, in Asia at all. The U.S. has 8 major non-NATO allies in this region. So in incorporating all these U.S. allies in this region, it could produce 1 + 1 bigger than 2 kind of effect, which China could never do. So that's the thing I want to clarify first. And second of all, of course, all these larger scale military joint exercise is for deterrence in purpose. So of course it doesn't escalate the situation. So it's more like, let's take currently, starting from March, US, Korea, this Freedom Shield joint exercise. That particular exercise is going on today, and that's aiming to, for missile defense training. And why is doing missile defense training? Because as we know, 2022, 23, and beginning of this year, North Korea did a lot of missile launch tests. So for these military alliance, US and Korea, they have to train their soldiers, their military, be able to deter possible incoming strike. So this August, this WIJI Freedom Shield, there's also an annual military exercise between South Korea and the US. That particular military exercise will aim at the possible nuclear strike from North Korea to South. So it is actually a deterrence in nature, but not trying to escalate the situation in this region.
If we zoom out a little bit, we can see there are so many bilateral or multilateral military exercises around this region, annually or biannually, including the biannual RIMPAC and also the King Sword, a lot. So a lot is going on already there, but this is the mechanism. First is to increase the interop between different navies, different air forces and ground force. And secondly is to train and see the feasibility of the military plan. And third is about sending signal, said that we are here, so don't ever want to do the unnecessary unilateral actions. So that is to preserve the regional peace and stability.
And at least from the junior Bush administration, Taiwan was also considered as a non-NATO allies in Asia, right? You want anything to add up to this role of Taiwan in all these military drills?
There are two things I want to add. Number one is there is a very unique development under all these lots of joint exercise in the past 2-3 years is really countries has been preparing for possible contingency. It's not a joke. It's normal like SOP kind of military training or exercise. It's a real thing. It's not a drill. So if you look at Talisman Sabre joint exercise between US and Australia last year, joined by Korea, Japan, the Philippines. The US is basically, after the termination of joint exercise, they basically left the weapons, the equipment, and also ammunition at Australia. So if you look at November last year, the Kamadec joint exercise between US and the Philippines, the US, after joint exercises, they basically left HIMARS system at Philippines. So the US is trying to do, really real preparation for possible contingency. And again, it echoes what Dr. Chen just said. He's sending a very strong signal to Beijing. If you dare to make a stupid move, you will pay the price. And number two is about the non-NATO, major non-NATO ally. Taiwan is not in the list, but the treatment Taiwan has been receiving is the same thing as a major non-NATO ally, the other 18 countries. So it is just not Taiwan's name on the list, but Taiwan is major non-NATO allies.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of the U.S. military preparation, during these exercises, U.S. has deployed 2 aircraft carrier strike groups for joint drills with Japan to display its military strengths. So is the U.S. aiming to shift its strategy towards more advanced, high-tech warfare, Professor
Well,
Chen?
certainly. Well, we all know, China and Russia have been very aware of this. The high tech will be the determining factor in the future war. So I think no matter who the military planner is, they are planning for how to incorporate the high tech into the modern war fighting concept. I think this is the thing to be said. And secondly, putting the important asset to aircraft carrier in this region, that means that they want to guarantee the peace in this region and make every actor in this region either feel very comfortable and confident in the U.S. Commitment to the region, and make their adversary understand that they are here to stay.
I also wonder what's the CCP or PLA's preparation or calculation about these U.S. military involvements in this region by, sending out aircraft carriers.
That's really very little China could do to counter all these, again, the U.S. networking domination, especially at East Asia, because all these major military exercises, it is every month. It is not like once in a year. It's major joint military exercise every month. And number two is, the U.S. is basically they're stationing forces in all these countries surrounding China. And number three is all these countries have very deep arms sales relation with the states. So all these three things is China cannot, counter. And number two is there is no separation of theaters nowadays. You don't separate theaters from East China Sea to Taiwan Strait to South China Sea to Filipino Ocean. You don't do that. And number two, there is no separation of domains. So that's what you just mentioned, including these Cobra Gold exercises. They also include space security training and also cyber security training. And we move back a little bit is a global Sentinel 24 joint military exercise is focusing on space security, joined by 25 countries. So again, there is no separation, not only no separation of theaters, but also no separation of domains. From underwater to water, to ground, to air, to outer space, and to cyber. You have a lot of domains, and there is basically no separation of domains on modern war. Yeah.
Finally, really short question also, back in the short answers that we're talking about the Biden administration now has been intensifying military activities and conducting regular military exercise in Europe, in Asia Pacific, as we just mentioned, so many. What are the objectives, of Biden's administration? Maybe that's for the goods of his campaign. Still, Professor Kuo first. Yeah.
I believe President Biden is trying to demonstrate the U.S. strength in networking all these allies and democracies against a possible Chinese invasion, no matter it's East China Sea, Taiwan Strait, or South China Sea.
Professor Chen?
Well, definitely, I totally agree that the main purpose of the United States, especially under the Biden administration, is to strengthen and re-guarantee the bond that he has built in his term with allied countries. So this joint military exercise is part of this effort. So I think that is also a thing that he wants to prove to the world leaders that he cares about the world. They are not going to be isolated. They are not going to restrict from the world. So this is part of his alliance building efforts.
Okay, Professor Chen, Professor Kuo, thank you for the great insights.
Thank you.
Thank you.
In this episode, our guests discuss various military drills in the Indo-Pacific involving countries aligned with either the US or China, as well as some that remain neutral, that focus isn't solely on Taiwan or the Taiwan Strait, but also on the issues such as North Korea. Enjoying this episode? Leave us a message and subscribe to Taiwan Talks. See you soon.